Let your imagination soar with Audible. With stories across every genre, from expert advice to fantasy, you'll be inspired to imagine new worlds, possibilities, and ways of thinking. Listening can even lead to a positive change in your mood, habits, and overall well-being. As an Audible member, you'll get to choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, including bestsellers and new releases. Allow yourself to delve into the spooky this season by listening to classics like Stephen King's The Shining and Pet Sematary. There's more to imagine when you listen. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500. That's audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500.
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been watching and, I believe, just playing. I'm Terry.
I'm Mary Beth. I'm back from my small tour of parts of America, aka the Midwest and the South. I sound gross because I have a cold. I'm not surprised. But we're back. I'm very excited. I've watched so much good shit recently because I was at Fantastic Fest, and I'm stoked to hear what you've been doing. So we're going to talk about body horror, surfing on a flying sword, which, like, hell yeah. One Take Zombie, why can't I say it? One Take Zombies, a new but old school M. Night feature, the latest in VHS terror, aerobics and body horror. Oh wait, that might be the exact same thing that body horror is at the beginning.
I think it is. Hilarious.
I just was really excited to talk about that movie. And then Jack's looking for Dick and Tracy's looking for a Golden Globe.
I'm looking for Dick Avery.
And I know how that sounds. And I know how that sounds.
It has been so long since we've recorded a Little Cuts episode, and it's been so long since we've talked. I guess it's only been like 2 weeks since we've talked, like recorded, because we've recorded some episodes, but yeah, it just feels like forever. And I mean, before we get to what we've been talking about, just announced yesterday, the Blu-ray for Swallowed is coming out from Vinegar Syndrome, and we both have stuff on it.
We do. I have a commentary with Carter and Jose Colon, who stars in the film as Dom, and you have a track with Jill Lipset, friend of the pod.
Yes.
Which is very exciting. So that's coming out from Yellow Veil Pictures via Vinegar Syndrome, and also Sister Hyde, Drusilla, who is also a friend of the pod, designed the cover art and a bunch of crazy, sexy stuff in it. So it's all kinds of amazing friends of Scarred for Life in one beautiful, disgusting package. So I think that y'all are kind of obligated to get it.
Let's put the pre-order link in the show notes, because
show notes.
It's gorgeous. Sure. It is gorgeous, and I cannot wait to have a copy in my hand.
I know. It's so good. So everyone pre-order that. It's very exciting, and you get to hear us talk about worms and sexy boys and body horror. So, where could you go wrong
What's not to love?
What's not to love? Also, if any of y'all are going to Nightmares Film Festival in Columbus, Ohio in October, my movie's going to be there on October 20th. So come hang. And if not, you'll see it soon. Yay! So that's my announcement for the day.
Hell yeah. Lots of announcements. It's great.
And on that note, I really want to hear about surfing on a flying sword.
Okay, so I don't know, Mary Beth, have you ever played the Persona games?
Yes.
I like the Persona games. I've never actually finished one because they actually are like 100 million hours to beat, and I just don't have the attention span after about 60 hours. But one of the directors on Persona, Katsura Hashino, he has moved away from the Persona series to create a new game series that is very similar to Persona, but is focused on medieval fantasy. It's called Metaphor ReFantazio. And it's very similar to the Persona, like in terms of it's kind of a social sim where there's like days that you can spend time hanging out with your friends and building relationships or going out and doing random things, and then there's dungeons and there's like this quest structure that you have to follow. It's fantasy, and even though it's rated T for teen, it feels a little bit more mature than the Persona games, which were rated M. Because it's basically about this fantasy world where initially you create your name as you, and then also your character's name. And you're playing in this fantasy game where there's a king and there's magic, and the king has just died. He was just assassinated. And there's no heir to the throne because the other prince people think is dead, but he's actually in a coma, magic-induced coma, and has been kept away from everyone as they're trying to like bring him back to life. And he plays this character that is on this quest to basically restore the prince to life by killing the person that cursed him, who is also this guy that is trying to usurp the throne now. So it's like this. It's going to be a base. The demo is out, which is how I've played it. The demo is substantial. It's about 6 hours long.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it continues. If your save can continue over into the full game. So I was like, great, I'll play the demo, fell in love with it. I pretty much beat it in like 2 sittings. It would have been 1 sitting, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to play it the first day. It's really good. It takes what Persona does really well and like adds layers to it, but I think makes it more user-friendly. And
what's it called again? One more time?
It's called Metaphor ReFantazio. And it's just this it has beautiful art, it has great music, it's a lot of fun. The battles are very quick paced. It has a really great, like, it's weird to talk about the UI, the user interface, but the user interface is stunning in this. It's a really great package, and there's a demo out on PlayStation 4, 5, Windows, and Xbox Series X and S. So there's no reason not to go try it if you have one of those systems. And it's a blast. I really like it.
Okay. It definitely has that like Persona comic book-y feel. Like,
yeah.
Like very, when I say comic book, like you think of like the pow, bam, like that's what I mean when I say comic book, just so people understand. But like it has that feel and that like very stylized, like even it's like anime, but like hyper stylized. And I'm into it. All the outfits are so good. I can already tell just looking at the images, all the hair and the outfits.
It's so stylish. It is such a stylish game, and the anime, it has the story is told through anime cutscenes, and those are really well done. It's just it's a great looking game. It plays really well. I'm very excited. It comes out October 11th.
Okay.
I'm going to be obsessed with this. I already can tell based on the 6 hours I spent with it.
The name is just incredible. Metaphor. ReFantazio. Like, oh God, and everyone's like freaking out because this and Silent Hill 2 are coming out, I think, at the same time, and all the reviews are coming out, and everyone's like, video games are back. And it's like, yeah, they are, baby.
Girl, this month is lousy with video games. There's the Until Dawn remake, there's the Silent Hill 2 remake, there's ReFantazio, there's Dragon Age, Veilguard at the end of the month, there's like a bunch of indie games in between that. There's so many games coming out this month. It is ridiculous.
And movies too, for fuck's sake, guys.
Oh my God, I know.
Help us. October is not the only
shows.
I swear to God. Like, guys, there's so many other months you can put things out.
Yes, Carter, all the spooky things.
Yes, and podcasts.
And podcasts, absolutely. So much. But yeah, that's Metaphor ReFantazio. Demo's out. Continues into the main game. If you like it, you're not wasting any time playing it because you can just pick up where you left off when you get the game. So, highly recommended.
Oh, hell yeah. Nice.
Transitioning slightly, One Take Zombies. I'm very excited to hear about this one.
Okay, so because we already had our episode with Stuart Ortiz and we talked about Strange Harvest with him, I am not going to talk about that film here because that's one of my favorites of the fest.
But side note, great fucking movie, and not just saying it because we interviewed him. We interviewed him because we loved it so much.
Yeah, like, it was one of my favorites of the festival, and so I was telling everyone at the festival to see it, so when that comes out, It's called Strange Harvest: Occult Murder in the Inland Empire. It sounds like a Netflix true crime documentary because it's like spoofing them. So that's the one Purpurina, your friend, did the score for. That's really cool. That's because the score is like incredible. Anyway, one of my other favorites of the fest is this one take zombie film called Mads. It's like capital MAD capital S. I think I'm an idiot and don't like fully understand why it's stylized that way, but that's fine. So this is directed by David Moreau, who did Them, which we actually did I didn't know that. Yeah, so we did an episode on our Patreon about his movie Them/Ills, which is the inspiration for The Strangers. And so this is his new movie, which is a one-take film that basically takes place in real time in one night. And it starts with this kid named Romain. He's just graduated high school. He's got a rich dad, and he's going to pick up drugs for a party. And he picks up this drug. It looks like Coke, but dyed red. And they're like, it'll fuck you up. And he's like, hell yeah, cool, whatever. Takes it, gets in his car to drive home, and a woman basically appears in the road. She gets in his car and says, drive. She's covered in blood. She looks like a medical patient, and she starts slamming her head against the dashboard, covering everything in blood. He arrives home, and the camera's following him this whole time. We are like following this in real time through the chaos, and he goes to wash off the blood, comes back to his car, and she's gone. And he starts feeling a little bit strange.
Oh.
Is it the drugs? Is it her? I don't know. And as the film progresses, you start seeing what's going on, but then the perspective shifts. So it's not just about Romain. At one point, it then, like, the camera then kind of like passes off to his girlfriend and then passes off to her friend. So we're following. It's really fucking cool because there's always still limit for the one take, like, you know, and it's kind of like if you watched, oh my God, the movie about the hair show. It was the one take movie about the hair show, and I completely forgot the name, but it's very similar in that it passes off perspective as a one take.
Medusa Deluxe.
Yeah, so think Medusa Deluxe, but throughout like throughout Paris. It's like kind of a bigger scope. So it's not one character. You follow him, and then you go to her. Her name's Anise, and she's played by this incredible young French woman whose physicality is like the most like heartbreaking but like mesmerizing thing. Think, like, I wrote this in my review, think Possession, like the scene in the subway, but she's turning into a zombie and she's like trying not to turn into a zombie, and it's like the most heartbreaking, intense thing I've ever seen. I'm so excited for people to see. I saw this at midnight at Fantastic Fest, and I was like, this movie is gonna fuck. I know it's gonna rule. And it was like one of my favorite experiences of the entire festival because, like, I love Fantastic Fest, but a lot of the movies are much bigger this year, which is great. But this is one of the smaller ones that like no one had really heard of, and I was so excited. Like, one take zombie movie by the guy who did Ills, like, of course, and it does not disappoint. And it's actually coming to Shudder. They actually just announced it today. Is
it like the 18th?
Yeah, it's coming to Shudder on the 18th. So It will be on Shudder in time for all the Halloween watching. It's only it's less than 90 minutes long, and it moves so fast. And it's just like, and again, you hear zombie and you're like, this is like how you do it the right way in terms of like, okay, we know like what to expect happening. How do we take a simple premise and just knock it out of the park? And that's what this movie does. So Mads, whatever, it's coming to Shudder on the 18th. So get ready, because that was one of my favorite movies out of the festival. If not,
I'm pumped.
That and Strange Harvest. Yeah.
And when I heard about it, I was like, this is right up my alley. I cannot wait to see this. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. I'm so glad that it worked. And I didn't even know that it was by the guy that did Ills. I didn't even know that.
I know. Yep. He kicks ass.
Fantastic.
Still. He kicks major ass still. So highly recommend. And it's coming out so soon, which is why I'm glad. I am really glad a lot of the movies that showed there come out this month, because I'm like, there's so much good shit that people need to see.
Yeah.
But A new but old school M. Night feature?
Yeah,
Ooh.
so I hope I'm not breaking an embargo on this, because the embargo just said no reviews, so this isn't a review. I'll just throw that out there.
Okay.
But this is Caddo Lake.
Oh, I was like, okay. Yeah.
So,
okay.
Caddo Lake has had a very troubled release history, because I remember back when Joe Lipset and I were covering Servant back in, I think, 2021 is when it was first announced, that two of the directors on Servant, Logan George and Celine Held, were picked up by M. Night to do a new a movie called The Vanishing, I want to say it was called, and then it was changed to The Vanishing at Caddo Lake, and now it's just called Caddo Lake. They filmed it in, I think, 2021 is when it was filmed, and 3 years later it's kind of getting, I don't want to say dumped on Max, but it feels like no one's talking about it. And it's a shame, because this movie, so like, here's the thing. I'll get to what it's about very soon, but I can understand after watching it both why M. Night was like attracted to it, because it is very much, it reminds me of an old school M. Night film, like back in the back when he was making twisty thrillers that were like grounded in human
like
emotion.
Signs in the Village era?
Yes. Maybe even a little bit like in that golden age of between Sixth Sense and The Village, I would say is kind of where this sits. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the plot because I don't want to spoil it, but this is a movie about Caddo Lake, which is a real place. It is in between, I believe, it is like close to maybe on the border between Texas and Louisiana. And it has like this very Southern Gothic kind of feel to it, where it's a bunch of like rural people living on Caddo Lake. And a lot of them use boats to get from one place to another. And their homes are like along the side of it. One of the characters, her name is Ellie, and she's played by Eliza Scanlon. She's like, when she's introduced, she has to put milk back on at the grocery store because she can't afford it with the money that her mom gave her. So like we're dealing with very rural, very poor community, and it's kind of tied to the fact that Caddo Lake is drying up. We're following her, but we're also following Dylan O'Brien's character, who, gosh, I love him. He's such a hottie. I love him though. I think he's a good actor too, and he plays this character whose mom had a seizure while they were driving, and they go off a bridge and crash into Caddo Lake, and she ends up dying. And she was diagnosed with some, I don't remember what the disease was, but the symptoms don't seem to jive with what he thinks happened to her. So we're following the mystery of her, and we're also following the mystery of what's happening to Eliza Scanlon's father, who just up and left at one point. And we're following their two stories, and then Eliza's sister vanishes in Caddo Lake. And so that kind of sets off this trajectory as we're following both characters in sort of a parallel storylines, both in terms of plot, but also in terms of thematic ties. And it just sort of weaves in from there, and then crazy shit happens, and it gets very complex and convoluted. And this is where like I can see again why M. Night was attracted to it, but I can also see why studio execs were like, I don't know what to do with this, because it's a smart movie, it's very complex, and it relies a lot on audience investment. And I don't think studio execs have a high opinion of audiences. And they're like, well, I don't know how to market this. This is too smart for the average consumer, is how it feels. I don't know if that's true or not, but considering the fact that it's been 3 years since they filmed it, I wonder if that's why. And it's a shame, because this is a really fucking good movie. It's very sad. It's very twisty. It surprised me. It was one where I had to like pause it at one moment and turn to my roommate, and we discussed what was happening and like our theories on it. I really enjoyed this one. I think it is a fantastic mystery, and I don't want to kind of spill out the other genres that are going on in here, but it's really good. Everything I told you, that's all you need to know to go into it. If any of that interests you, don't read anything about it. Just sort of experience it. But that's coming to Max on October 10th, so next week. And that's why I wanted to cover it now, because by the time we talked about it, it would be out, and I want everyone to go check this out. So October 10th, Max, Caddo Lake, Highly recommended.
Cool. I just found my my screener so I won't forget to watch it.
Yeah, you need to ping me when you do, because
Got it.
It's a surprising movie.
Cool. Because, yeah, I got an email about it, and I was like, oh, wait, I haven't heard anything about this. This actually looks kind of cool. So
I didn't realize it was the same movie because I was very excited about it, because I love Logan George and Celine Held. They did a very fantastic job directing episodes of Servant. And so when I found out that they were making a movie, I was like, I'm really excited to see that. And then I just assumed that it came and went. And I was like, haven't heard anything about it. And then watching this movie is like, oh, wait, this is that movie.
So I was like, oh, whoa, great. It's out, I guess.
Yeah.
At least they're putting it on Max. You know, at this point, to me, getting onto a streamer like that isn't as much of a death sentence as I think it used to be. Honestly, like, I've kind of looked at it as, like, it's almost better sometimes.
This is a movie I really would like to have seen in a theater.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, one of the,
it's gorgeous.
Especially if it's got that, like, M. Night feel of, like, twisty and, like, it looks pretty, too, like, from the trailer.
It's gorgeously shot. So. It's a very, very well-made movie.
Okay. Well, this makes me even more excited to check it out.
I cannot wait. Hit me when you do. Because, I gotta know what you think. All right. Pivoting madly again, and I'm also very excited for this one. Let's talk about the latest in VHS terror.
Okay, so also at Fantastic Fest, I was lucky enough to see the world premiere of VHS Beyond. And I am happy to report that it fucking slaps. I say this every time with VHS, and I feel like a broken record, but, like, they really do keep getting better with time. And I think I have, like, two thoughts about that, which is they're going to sound like kind of conflicting ideas here, but it'll make sense when I'm, like, done talking about it. So before I get into, like, my own personal stuff, VHS Beyond, you know, it's a VHS found footage anthology again. But this time, instead of focusing on, like, a year, so we've seen, like, the eras. There's been, like, the VHS 1 through 3, which was just, like, nothing. It was just, there wasn't really, like, a theme. It was just found footage. Then we had 94, 99, 85, which is, like, a year-specific era. And then, okay, sorry, I'm just like, Jesus, fuck, there's so many of these movies.
There are.
And now we're getting, I think, we're ushering in this new era where they're moving away from, like, year-specific, but more to, like, more subgenre. So this is all science fiction-based. And so, but what's really cool here is that they don't just do aliens, which, like, you know, you really could have just done aliens, but there's actually pretty creative in how they handle the science fiction label. So I'll just, like, briefly run through who's involved. So Jay, and it's, like, it's interesting because these aren't names that, like, I'm super familiar with, but they've worked with VHS before. And this is part of, like, kind of my wheels turning about the franchise and, like, what it's evolving to. So Jay Cheel does the frame narrative, which is basically, like, a pseudo-documentary about a guy who was abducted by aliens. And it's, like, that's my biggest complaint about this movie is that it's not framed as if we're incorporating all of the other stories into the frame narrative. It's just, like, the frame narrative is edited around the other stories. So it just, like, once again, like, the last one had a really cool cohesive element to it with the frame story, but this one, it's just, like, a little awkward. But, you know, whatever. That's just my opinion, honestly. But anyway, so then there's Stork, which is by Jordan Downey, and he did Thanksgiving.
He also did that, that fantasy movie that I really enjoyed, The Headhunter.
Yeah. So this one is, like, Resident Evil first-person shooter chaos that has, like, the fucking craziest twist about baby disappearances. Incredible. It's an incredible way. Like, it starts you off on this, like, incredible chaos note, and then we go to this Bollywood Terminator movie called Dream Girl, directed by Virat Paul, and it's written by Vertpal and Evan Dixon, who wrote the frame narrative for 85. And this is about two guys who go to like get dirt on a Bollywood star and find out that she's actually not what they expect. And she goes on a fucking rampage and it's cool as hell. Justin Martinez, who has, he did like Southbound. He did some of the original VHSs, but he does Live and Let Dive, which is when an alien invasion happens during a skydive, which is...
What?
Oh, baby girl. It's actually insane how they film. Like, I don't fully, he didn't tell me how he filmed it. It was like a secret, but like they film, it's skydiving found footage. And it's scary as shit. You see him fall out of the plane all the way to landing and then going from there, and there's aliens. It's nuts.
What?
Like, it's cuckoo bananas. It's cuckoo bananas.
Sold.
Yeah. It's really good. So, and then from there, Christian and Justin Long, brothers, made like a mad scientist one about a woman and her dogs. And then the final one is Kate Siegel directed. It's called Stowaway. And that's like that one is like because they're all so bloody. And the last one doesn't seem as bloody at first, but it gets into like existential, crazy cosmic horror at the end.
Ooh.
So everything about this is like, it's so well done. Like the effects are incredible. Like
I was going to say, the synopsis is bangers, all of them. Like every one of them has my interest peaked. And
I wish people could see it in a theater, like everyone could see it in a theater. Because like truly, like these, like they just do so many cool things with the effects here. But I'm getting to the point where they're a little bit deviating from, I think, like, the original conceit of what VHS is. And I'm not necessarily, like, and I think in my head, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but, like, Kate Siegel and Mike Flanagan are part of it. We have Justin Long part of it. We have people coming back who are incredibly talented, which is great, but VHS has so often been about, like, highlighting other voices, and like perhaps, and like that might have been due to, like, that might have, you know, lent to some of the maybe not like consistency, but also it was nice because it was like indie and there was people you never heard of and it was really interesting, and it just feels like it's kind of moving into a more, and it's like mainstream is the wrong word here because like VHS isn't, it's like not mainstream fully, but it's like kind of going into pulling in mainstream people, like pulling in like Justin Long and Mike Flanagan. And I get it. Like you want to get bigger as these go on. You want to like make more money, get more money. I totally get that. So I know there's like a tension there. It's just, it can tell that it's evolving into something that is no longer just about like indie stuff. It's also about like, oh, let's bring in other filmmakers who are really talented, but like they already have a lot of experience and we know what they can do, kind of thing.
I mean, because like the original ones were kind of like a launch pad for some people's horror careers, and so
yeah,
the fact that we might be moving away from that is kind of sad. I get that.
Yeah, and I think it just makes me like think about the state of the industry as a whole, and that like it's more profitable for you to work with people that have names, and how that's leaking into things like this. And again, like I get it, it's a business. Like it's like you have to make some conceits, and like yeah, and like this movie's insane. Like it's not by no means a mainstream movie. Like some of the stuff in here is crazy. It's just, I think as someone who is so inside of this like pod of the genre, like talking about this to anyone else, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've never heard of these movies. And I'm like, but they're getting more. Like I'm like that Charlie Day meme of him pointing at the map of all of like, and you just like, but look, yeah, it's just interesting to see the pivot. And I don't think, again, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. It was so much fun. I gave it a good rating. I loved the movie. It was like such a good experience. It's incredibly entertaining, which is what we want the movies to be. I think just like on like a us talking about movies level, I think it's interesting just to kind of look at, because we've talked about these movies we've been doing this podcast for 5 years. Like we've talked about a lot of these movies, and it's just so interesting to see how popular it's become and what that means. It's cool because it means found footage is like so cool, and like I'm down with that. It's just like interesting to see the resources being put into it, at least this kind of found footage. So yeah. Anyway, that's my old man yells at cloud.
I mean, I think it's a very valid point, though. But two things. One, because you mentioned it, we're recording this on a Wednesday. The day before, 5 years. We've been doing this for 5 years. It was our 5-year anniversary a day ago, as of this recording. That's fucking wild. But two, I didn't even put it together that like VHS is now doing kind of like subgenre. Like I knew it was doing sci-fi, but I wasn't really thinking about it in terms of that. And now, listen, whoever is making these movies, I need an aquatic horror subgenre, please, and thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, if they can have these motherfuckers skydiving found footage, we can do aquatic, I think.
Well, it's like, I mean, it wasn't the best movie, but do you remember Open Water 3 Cage Dive with the, like, night vision?
Oh, yeah.
With the sharks in the water? Night vision? That scared the shit out of me. Like, I want to see that. I want to see it.
Well, we'll just keep petitioning for it. I know.
Give it to me.
Give it to me. Give it to me, Rachel. But honestly, like, kind of in a similar vein, a little bit, body horror and aerobics.
The Substance is so fucking good. It's so fucking good. It's so fucking good. It is the most fun I have had in a movie theater this year. I laughed. I gasped. I was surprised. I was kept constantly like being jerked around with the twists. I love this fucking movie.
Yep.
What's it about, Mary Beth? Since I apparently can't say anything other than how much it fucking rocks.
So, The Substance is the newest film from Coralie Farge, who we all know is my Lord and Savior and my Jesus Christ because she directed Revenge, which we all know I never shut the fuck up about. And so this is her second film starring icon Demi Moore as Elizabeth Sparkle, who is a very famous woman for, I guess, being an aerobics instructor. It like doesn't really matter because this is another one of, this is like in Revenge, when the world seemed like a fantasy world, this is very similar. And that like, don't worry about the details. Like this world is very similar to our own, but like not. So just kind of detach your mind from reality and kind of just like go with the vibe. So she, on her 50th birthday, learns that she's getting fired by her gross boss, played by Dennis Quaid.
Oh, so gross.
And she gets a call from a mysterious lab saying like, hey, you want to try the substance? It'll change your life. And it is essentially, I mean, if you've heard about it, we know it's essentially a fable about Ozempic. But here, she takes the substance, and what happens is a hotter, younger version of herself literally climbs out of her body. And for every 14 days, they share 7 days. So what I mean by that is the hot young one that comes out of her body is Sue, played by Margaret Qualley. And for 7 days, Margaret has control of the body. And for 7 days, Elizabeth has control of the body. Guess what? That doesn't really go super well. And it kind of just devolves into an absolute disaster as they start sabotaging and fucking with each other's bodies. Because they are one. And that's what they keep being reminded is like, you got to respect the balance. Like you are one body. Like you have to do the right thing. And of course they don't, because why would you? And the consequences are pretty bad.
Gnarly. What I love about this is that it's such a smart like retelling of the portrait of Dorian Gray. Like they even have like this giant painting of Elizabeth Sparkle in the background that ends up getting cracked with the eye, but like, and it gets hidden away. So like this is totally riffing on Dorian Gray, this idea of like the inner beauty and then the outer beauty and like the fact that you might be wilting away on the inside. Like we're playing with that, but we're also playing with exploitation films of like the 70s and particularly the 80s. I want to throw out a couple things out here, but I don't want to because I don't want to spoil anything. Because again, this is one of those movies that you just want to go in and experience because it is a fucking ride. I love that this is such a what a sophomore feature. Like it's giving Titan, like it's giving like that kind of we did this movie and it was great and it was bloody and now we're gonna kind of up the ante and go wild. What I love about Coralie is she can make. Yep, exactly, Carter. That was the movie. I'm not going to say it out loud for anyone. I don't want to spoil anything, but that is the movie I was immediately thinking of. But Coralie is very good at making food and men gross. And Dennis Quaid eating shrimp is disgusting. Just like there was because it was funny. I watched this with my roommate. We went to the theater and saw it, and I was like, "You've never seen Revenge, have you?" And she's like, "No." So we ended up watching Revenge so that she could see it, and I was like immediately reminded, like, "Oh, yep, I'm seeing some connections, particularly with the way the focusing on the mouth as men are eating food is so disgusting in this movie, and it was so gross in Revenge. This is my favorite movie I've seen this year.
I loved it. And it's weird because I've watched Revenge so much and I have thought about Revenge so much that like watching The Substance was like a shock, and like not in a bad way. But I was just like, how do I put it's like it's hard to put into words how I feel about The Substance. I really I loved it. But I like almost wish it was angrier, which I know sounds silly. But I think what I loved so much about Revenge is there was so much rage in it and so much like, and I think there is a lot of rage in The Substance, but it didn't feel satisfying to me, I think. And again, like they're totally different movies. And I think like it's hard for me because I have such a wild relationship with her first movie. Right. So I think like, but it's like it's really interesting to see that like, the stuff that she did with Revenge with the female gaze, she's still doing in The Substance, which I love. And the way that she's like drawing so much attention to how we look at parts of the female body and but then also how like women look at themselves. And I think so much of this movie that I love is like we're so often looking at the women as looking in mirrors or as they're reflecting on themselves. And it's not. And, like, there are these moments that are obviously super mediated by men in terms of, like, the workout video sequences. But I think there's just something really interesting she's doing here with that perspective. And also, like, it's just, once again, a sledgehammer. Like, people are like, it's so obvious. I'm like, yeah, that's, like, the point, babes. Like, this isn't Titan. Like, that movie, Titan was just, like, so good. But, like, it really wasn't meant to be like the most clear, which is great. That's DeCorno's style. Farge's is ice pick. And I love that she gets to keep doing that and it's getting so much love and attention. It's neat. And Demi Moore fucks. Margaret Qualley does too, but I really love Demi Moore.
Demi Moore has some of the best scenes in this movie. There's one you talk about looking in the mirror. There's one where she's getting ready for a date that was just like, I feel this. But then she also gets to have a lot of fun. Like some of the stuff that happens in the end, I was like, I love that Demi Moore signed on for this because it shows that like she's not just there to take herself very seriously. Like she has fun in this movie. And I was cackling towards the end at just what was happening.
Well, and like Demi Moore is known, like I was reading an article about this today. Like she was the first person to pose nude and pregnant on the cover of Rolling Stone. Mm-hmm. She shaved her head for G.I. Jane. Like
G.I. Jane. Mm-hmm.
She's always been like very open with her body, but also just like criticized for her body. Like when I shaved my head, or when I wanted to shave my head and then did shave my head in college, because we all go through a crazy girl phase, people called me G.I. Jane and it was a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like she's become synonymous like with a little bit of crazy and judgment on her body, as all female stars do, but I do feel like a lot. And apparently her autobiography is incredible. Like, oh, okay. People have just been talking about it because apparently a lot of the stuff that she talks about in her memoir Inside Out that came out in 2019 is apparently like a really interesting companion to The Substance. I haven't read it yet. I've just heard because of like her own experiences in Hollywood. So it's cool to get to see a woman like her play a role like that. And like, it's neat. Fun fact, those aren't Margaret Qualley's real tits.
Oh, they're not?
No, apparently her boobs are not big enough, so Coralie Vache had someone make her a pair of tits for the movie.
Oh, wow.
Which, like, we could have a full discussion about, like, making someone a pair. I have to fully fact check that. Like, you know, that might have been, like, something that, but, you know, interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway. Yep, apparently in People, she said she was given prosthetic boobs to endow me with the rack of a lifetime.
Nice. All right. Interesting.
Anywho. Okay. The substance.
All right. Now let's end this show with some 30 Rock. Let's talk about Dick and Golden Globes. What did you think about these two episodes, Mary Beth? The first one is Gentleman's Intermission.
I love Gentleman's Intermission, I will say. I texted you my favorite line while I was watching it because I was absolutely howling at my favorite line there. But hold on, I'm pulling them up now because the first one we have poor Jack Donaghy trying to find a mentor because his baby mama wants to put up boundaries and say you cannot like hanging out with Liz Lemon this much. It's kind of weird. And they, in their attempt, and this whole episode is documenting their attempts to like not be codependent, like work besties. And honestly, like I do love an incredible representation of platonic work besties, like platonic trauma bonded work besties. Like I love that they're never like, no, we don't love each other. Like, or like at the end, he's like, oh yeah, like this is my little brother, or like this is my uncle. Like there is just like this kind of like knocks home that platonicness that I kind of love in the show of like, okay, this is what happens like when a boss and like people like. I kind of also see my relationship with Josh Querngut like not exactly the same, but like people higher up in a company who just like trauma bond and like are kind of codependent on each other.
Yep.
And this episode was Donaghy trying so hard to find another Liz Lemon, and it didn't work. And then on top of that, we have Jenna getting really upset that she doesn't have an obituary filmed for NBC, but Tracy Jordan has one, so she records her own obituary.
My favorite, and it took me so long to like realize that this is like the subtle joke that's happening, and I feel dumb for not missing it, but for missing it. But when Jenna is recording her obituary, she starts singing, and she talks about how Jenna Maroney ripped by us like the passing of the wind, like a giant fart. Is basically, but like she's singing it so beautifully that like I was like, oh, that's so sweet to sing about herself, and then it's like you start thinking about it's like, oh no, it's basically saying that her life is a fart.
It's like my favorite line of the whole episode is she storms into NBC and is like, why don't I have an obituary? And she goes, Kim Jong-un? Who is she? And not like
who that is.
I don't even know who that is. I don't even know who she is. It's just like, oh, amazing. But
also the writers, continuing along with this, the writers are very obsessed with Lost. And so there's a moment where Kenneth thinks that Tracy is dead because he sees the obit. And he's like, no, Jacob, you can't take him from me. I still have work with him. And it's a very subtle joke, but it's about Jacob from Lost.
Oh, that's what
yeah.
This is what happens when you like this is happening like at this is what happens when you're watching this like decades later and you're like, what are you fucking talking about?
There's a lot of Lost jokes throughout the show, and there's a lot of Lost jokes around Kenneth and his perceived immortality, and this is continuing on with that whole vein.
Yeah, why is he back?
Oh boy, he gets his job back somehow, and it becomes this whole thing. Because there's this senator who's briefly mentioned in the next episode that we're talking about, played by Queen Latifah, and she's like thinks that NBC is not diverse enough, and so she's taking kind of like a crusade to like bring down NBC. And at the same episode where Kenneth is trying to get his job back, and Jack's just like, just hire him. Why are you making him go through all this rigmarole? And then she comes to find out that they hired him instead of a Native American something or another. I don't remember all of the descriptors around the character. But of course, they hired the straight white man instead of, and so it's like a joke. But yeah, he gets his job back.
Good for him. Okay, cool. Oh, and then also, simultaneously, Tracy is trying to do something good for his obituary, because all of his obituaries are things like gave the queen parvo, which made me laugh like a motherfucker, because I was like, how the fuck do they think of things like this? Gave the queen parvo.
You gotta wonder what the writer's room was like.
I know. Like, one worst representation of a black man 9 years in a row. It was starred in the Fat Bitch series. I was like, God damn. That also just reminded me of like the Night Bitch starring Jenna Maroney, Jenna in like just like the memes people were making when Night Bitch like that all came out.
Yes.
But my favorite is like he has Kenneth like fake attack the hero like a cat, and he doesn't stop him because he's like, oh wait, I'm going to be in a really good movie. Okay, and then Jenna fucking cracks poor Kenneth on the skull with a fire extinguisher.
Killing cats is wrong unless you're making a hat.
Just like, I want her to have her own show so badly. And like, maybe it would be grating, but I don't know. I just feel like it'd be great. Like, wow. And that... I really like that one tickled me. And then we have the next episode where we have Tracy and we have congressional election. Interesting. And then we also have Tracy trying to get Golden Globe nominations. And also Liz Lemon wearing incredible jeans.
Yes. That make her ass look great. This episode, the more I watch it, the more it I find myself like cringing just because it perfectly encapsulates the political spectrum that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Like this really foretold Trump, because we have this guy, Steve Austin, who does these ads as a baby and tells voters, if you're blind, I am the $6 million man.
Yep. And if you're blind, I am the wrestler.
He talks about the rebirth of America. Like, you can just almost see, like, I could just almost imagine someone saying, yes, this is what we need to make Donald Trump. Let's do MAGA. Like, it is the stuff that is going on in this episode is very cringe now because of the political climate that we are in. And this came out in 2010. And it's upsetting to me.
Yeah. I truly actually think I turned off my brain for most of those parts because I was like, this is too real. I don't like this man. But then I did turn my brain on when Jenna was trying to get Tracy to bribe critics to get him a Golden Globe.
You can do this, Tracy. Got it. Snap
fingers really badly.
Yeah, snap really badly.
It's... But I also love, I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who plays, like, the congressional, like, the senator, was a really, like, hot business guy in Mad Men, and that's how I always see him. So seeing him play this character is very bizarre to me, because he is, like, business
John
daddy.
Slattery.
Yes, he's, like, daddy in Mad Men, to me, personally. And then seeing him in this, I'm like, no, I don't think so.
He's a goober.
I was like, I don't think so.
He was also Howard Stark in the Marvel series.
Oh. Just kidding. Like, as if I didn't see all of the original ones. I have lost track at this point. But that's neither here nor there. Tracy Jordan really did star in a successful movie.
Which is a not-so-veiled joke at Push, a novel by Sapphire.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. Oh, it's very much making fun of, like, we love... Because at one point...
Stone Cold Bummer by Manipulate.
They're like watching it, and then the cops come in and say, oh, and your mom exploded. Like white cops come in to tell this like, black family, and I'm like, I knew that's what we were doing, but it just kind of made it just, and then Jenna's like, we have to talk. Like, this is drunk in the bathtub crying, and like everyone
One of my favorite lines. It made me drunk. It made me drunk with a bathtub face. I also love when Liz realizes that Jenna is screwing over Tracy, and she says something to the effect of like, "You and Tracy deserve each other. I don't know which one of you'd be more disappointed in." And Jenna, who has to be winning everything, says, "Me, silly. I'm more aware of what I'm doing." Like, she has to win everything. She has to be the best at everything, and it cracks me up.
Oh, I love her. God, she's delusional. And that's why I love her, you know? She's like the character in Parks and Rec, like April Ludgate's like foil from the other town. And she's like, I hate her so much I want to travel the world with her. I think I've said this before, but that's how I feel about Jenna. As like, I hate her and I would travel the world with her.
Yes. Same. Yeah. She is so good in this episode too. I just
she's
love
incredible.
her. Like when they're shopping for jeans and Jenna's like, "It's hip, Liz. It's hip with all the young people. I mean, all the us." Because she's so focused on being young. And I love that we have like youth slang, zing, which I think I think Gen Alpha should embrace zing and Norrent for ignorant. Like, I just think they should. They're just great.
We'll spread it on TikTok or whatever.
But I also love the idea that like this Brooklyn Without Limits, which is where Liz gets her jeans, and she's so like proud of them, and how, you know, it makes her feel better as a person for taking a hot shower just because she was bored. Like, she's like, I'm doing wonderful things, and it turns out that it's owned by Halliburton, and it's funny, this sort of like, what was the line, like crunchy hipster or something on the outside and like right-wing nut job on the inside, and Jack's like, just like Ann Coulter's underwear. I'm done. I can't.
It's so fucking gross.
It cracks me up every single time. It's so disgusting. It's so disgusting.
And yet, it just is so true for so many people now. That applies to all of those fucking like mom talkers out there, like Nara Smith.
Oh God.
Crunchy on the outside, like crunchy hipster on the outside, right wing.
Oh my God, she literally is Brooklyn Without Limits. Like, she is that person. Oh my God. Huh.
Nothing is an original experience.
There's this joke on South Park at one point where it's like, Simpsons did it, where it's like they can't make new jokes because everything they want to do, Simpsons has done. And I sometimes feel that way about 30 Rock. Like, it's hard to like, it's hard to like be fazed by some things in the real world, because I'm like, this just feels like a 30 Rock sketch between MILF Manor, between Trump and Steve Austin. Like, it just, I don't know. It feels not as funny sometimes watching this in 2024, because everything that it was making fun of or like talking about is now reality. And that's kind of depressing.
Cool. What are we watching next week?
Well, the good times keep rolling with episode 11, Mrs. Donaghy, where Liz and Jack end up accidentally getting married to each other.
Of course.
And then we're going to episode 15, so we're skipping a few. It's Never Too Late for Now, which this Never Too Late for Now, and then the next two episodes we're covering might actually be my favorite 3 episodes of the entire show.
Ooh.
But just as a little bit of plot, keeping you up to date, in between Mrs. Donaghy and It's Never Too Late for Now, Carol and Liz break up. So...
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
But yeah, so that if you're confused as to why what happens in It's Never Too Late for Now happens, they're broken up.
Okay.
All right, but that's where we're going next week. But and we're zooming through season 5. There's some like great episodes, and there's some that I'm just like, okay, it's fun. But like my favorite episodes get a little bit smaller with these. But I think that some of them are still some of my favorite of the show. But that's next Little Cuts. Who are we talking to on Monday, Mary Beth?
Okay, I'm so stoked. We're chatting with filmmaker Pascal Plante, the writer and director of Red Rooms, which is an incredible digital thriller about some really messed up shit on the dark web. It's available now. If you want to check it out before our episode on... Is it out now, actually? Is it out now?
It's out as of the drop of this episode. It's out on VOD. It'll be out on VOD on the 4th.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought.
It's also still in theaters.
Yeah, it's still doing some, but it'll be out for everyone to watch on the 4th of October. Highly recommend it. And he brought with him Fantasia, the original Disney animated film, which I have so much more appreciation for after talking about it with him. So yeah, it's a good one. He has so much more to say about Fantasia than I ever would have. So it's actually like a beautiful episode because he just like has so many beautiful things to say and observations. So, and he's just like the coolest. So watch Red Rooms this weekend because it's one of my favorites of the year.
You talked about it on, I think it was either the last or 2 episodes ago on Little Cuts before we took our little break. And then I watched it because we were going to interview him. And I was like, this is great stuff. This is really good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites of the year. So that's going to be Monday's episode. So get excited. So everyone, you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. Have you watched or played anything that we talked about and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for things we should be covering? Let us know by sending us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on social media. I am at MBMcAndrews on Twitter and at MB.McAndrews on Instagram.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful everywhere.
And follow the podcast everywhere. We are at Scarred Podcast on Twitter and Blue Sky and at Scarred for Life Podcast on Instagram.
And don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And if you want to help support us, we do have a Patreon. And again, I'm going to plug Swallowed Blu-ray pre-order Vinegar Syndrome. Go.
Do it. Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. He has a Ghoul log, actually, I think that everyone should check out that he animated. So I'll put that in the show notes. Sean Keller did our music. He also has a new album out. So all of our friends have cool shit happening. So we'll put all of that in the show notes because it is spooky season. And this is when everyone decides to release their Halloween stuff, which is great and also terrifying.
Also, I just looked. And there are only 459 copies of the limited edition Swallowed available right now. So they're selling out. So if you want to get this gorgeous release, I would recommend going to check it out before it sells out.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there. Most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.